Hi, babe. I hope you're doing amazing. My name is Amity, and I am here with a psychic message from your ancestors. And the ancestors I am working with today, they are ancestors that were frequently misunderstood. So if you're listening to this message and it's really for you, you'll know because you frequently feel misunderstood too. Or maybe you've had a recent experience that made you feel like you didn't belong. Because the ancestors I am channeling today, they're telling me. We were very social. We loved to talk. We loved to have intellectual exchanges. But every time we did, we would feel disappointed because we realized we didn't gel, we didn't mesh with those people. It seems like the more they would get to know people, the more they would get let down by those people because they would realize they didn't speak the same language, they didn't have the same beliefs, and they didn't like the same things. So the connections would end almost as fast as they started because of this. They would get to know people and they would soon realize, I don't want this. This is not going to last. It's not sustainable. So I'm just going to walk away from this connection. For some of your ancestors, this was quite literal in that they did not speak the same language. Because maybe they were nomads, maybe they were immigrants, and so they would settle in places where they did not know the native tongue. And it seems like they would meet people and they would think that, oh, this person knows my language. But as soon as they would carry out that conversation, they would realize that person didn't know as much as they thought they did. You know how it's easy to learn greetings from other languages? It's easy to say bonjour, but carrying out a whole conversation in French is a lot more difficult. And so your ancestors, they would have situations like that where they would get so excited and say, oh my God, this is someone I can hang out with. This is someone that I can get to know. And then things would turn around very quickly. And it's so funny because I'm just thinking about the language barrier because this happens to me a lot. Like, I know a little bit of Spanish, and so people will think I'm fluent in Spanish, and I'll trick people because I'm not. I feel like your ancestors, they would get tricked a lot. You know, sometimes people see me and they think I'm Indian, they think I'm Ethiopian, and I'm not, and they'll speak their native tongue, and I'll have to tell them, I'm so sorry, I don't know. So I think your ancestors, they were duped a lot, and you probably feel this way about the people that you meet, where you start that conversation, and you think they know a lot about psychology or astrology or a band. You know, you think they know a lot about travel or anything. And as soon as you get deeper, you realize, oh, they're not as woke as I thought they were. They're not as aware as I thought they were. And then you're almost immediately turned off and you're like, okay, well, that ended sooner than I thought it would. You know, I think some of you engage with people, you get so excited about them. And then shortly after, 2 days after, you're like, yeah, this is not going to go anywhere because we're just too different. And if this is something that does frequently happen to you, I just want you to know that it runs in your bloodline. It's a part of your lineage because your ancestors, they adapted. They learned to live very separately from other people because, again, they would talk to people and realize they had to give up on those people. So your ancestors, they loved to be alone. They eventually learned to isolate themselves because it kept them grounded. I'm hearing that isolation kept them sane. And so they got to the point where they could talk, they could be witty, they could be charming. They had great personalities, and so they got along with people just fine. But as far as long-term connections, this is not how your ancestors really thrived. Again, they thrived when they were alone, grounded in their own energy. They were more productive that way, and that's why they liked it. But I'm getting from your ancestors that they do want you to pivot. They do want you to embrace short-term connections at this time. They want you to be a little bit less boundaried when it comes to temporary connections. Because right now they think it's very important that you have temporary short-term connections in your life. The reason for this is because short-term connections are going to inspire you right now. There are going to be short-term connections that come into your life, and they are going to give you ideas. You may even meet a muse soon that encourages you to be more creative. Some of you are lyricists, is what I'm hearing. You write, you journal. Some of you have a very strong gift in communication. Poetry is even what I'm hearing. And so these temporary connections, they are going to inspire you to start writing. I don't want to say again, because I think some of you are already actively writing. But again, if you don't allow short-term connections in your life, you may realize that you come up on a creative block. And so your ancestors, they don't want you to feel stagnant when it comes to your creative writing. That's why short-term connections are so important right now. Because someone is going to come into your life, and again, they're going to be that muse. They're going to be that inspiration point for your next creative project. This may be very hard for some of you, but your ancestors, they want you to stay open. Just be open, even if it doesn't last very long. Because for some of you, you may not identify as a writer. You may not identify as a lyricist, but it's almost like these temporary connections, they may give you inspiration for like a think piece. They may just change your perspective overall. Some of these people are going to act as oracles. They're going to give you an omen. They're going to act as a confirmation for even something that you already know, but you need it reinforced. And so allow these temporary connections into your life so you can get that sign, so you can get that signal, so you can get that inspiration because you need it. I know for me as a creative, I love my alone time. I feel like I get the most original ideas when I have my time in solitude. But as an astrologer, it's so important for me to know how astrology works in real life. And because of that, I do need interaction sometimes. And I feel like some of you are the same, where you get a lot of downloads. And so your alone time is so important. But sometimes having those exchanges, those relationships, they take things to the next level. And I just feel like when you allow short-term connections into your life, it's going to allow you to take your awareness to the next level. I am seeing a serpent, so some of you may see a serpent, a cobra, a snake, before an important person comes into your life. Some of you are going to meet a temporary connection that you need, When you're wearing like a lucky charm, some of you have a lucky item that you wear, and you'll run into this person when you have on that lucky item. But there's something here where temporary connections, they're going to give you good news. So if you allow a temporary short-term connection into your life, they're just going to tell you things that you need to hear. For some of you, you're actually going to meet someone who knows about your ancestors, like they have some type of ancestral knowledge, and letting them in is going to allow you to hear a message about your ancestral background. And for some of you, a temporary connection could even put you in a better living situation, is what I'm hearing. So yeah, there's something about these short-term connections delivering you good news. And that's why it's so important to let them in. So I hope this helps you be more tolerant of the temporary because your ancestors really want it for you.